Tonight, the mission to mass vaccinate children in Gaza. The all-out effort to quash polio in a war zone.
We have received more than 1.2 million doses of NOPV2 vaccine.
The plan to pause the fighting to make it happen. The callous crimes being committed by the young.
It was brutal not just because she was dead, it was brutal because of the condition of her body.
What's behind it?
There seems to be an uptick in school violence.
Plus, building on a big win.
It didn't feel like we were competing. It felt like we were on the same team.
How a Braille competition led a young boy to a bigger dream.
CTV National News with Heather Butts. Reporting tonight, Mirella Fernandez.
Good evening. Officials in Gaza have an ambitious goal. They aim to vaccinate 640,000 children against polio. Officials have 9 days to get the job done and have been given 7 to 8 hours a day to vaccinate. That works out to about 10,000 children dosed every hour. The mission is urgent after a toddler tested positive for polio, the first case in Gaza in 25 years. CTV's Jeremy Sharon reports tonight.
The first few doses of a crucial polio vaccine administered to a small number of children at Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis today. I was worried and afraid because polio disease is scary, says this Palestinian mother whose baby was among the first to be vaccinated. The push comes after the United Nations confirmed Gaza's first case of polio in 25 years, which health officials and humanitarian aid organizations have blamed on a lack of hygiene.
Every single aspect of infrastructure in Gaza has been utterly decimated. Sewage runs openly in the streets. And as aid organizations, we can't even get hygiene or a bar of soap into central or southern Gaza right now.
Preparations for the full-scale rollout of this mass immunization campaign continued today, set to begin officially Sunday.
We have received more than 1.2 million doses of NOPV2 vaccine, and approximately 400,000 doses are en route.
The operation hinges on agreed-upon daily 8-hour pauses in fighting between Israel and Hamas in parts of Gaza starting tomorrow. The World Health Organization aims to immunize more than 600,000 kids under 10, but health officials say reaching everyone at risk will be hard. We need a real ceasefire so that this campaign can really succeed, said Gaza's health minister. The World Health Organization says 90% of children in Gaza need to be vaccinated twice with a 4-week gap between doses for the campaign to be successful. Mirella?
CTV's Jeremy Sharon. There may be humanitarian pauses in Gaza, but in the West Bank, the fighting carries on. Israeli troops focused on the flashpoint city of Jenin today as they try to root out Iranian-backed militants. The health ministry says at least 20 Palestinians have been killed since troops entered the West Bank on Wednesday. 7 people are dead, dozens injured after a bus overturned in Mississippi west of Jackson. A brother and sister, 6 and 16, are among the dead. Their mother survived. The commercial passenger bus was headed to Mexico when a tire failed and the bus careened off the highway and rolled over into a ditch. Witnesses say some passengers were ejected. A crash along the 401 highway in Ontario led to 18 drivers being charged for trying to film the scene. A transport truck and a tanker had rolled over very early in the morning. The other drivers were hit with tickets for distracted driving. That came with a $600 fine and 3 demerit points. If convicted, they will also get a 3-day driving suspension. There have been several disturbing and violent crimes recently linked to teens. Earlier this month, a 13-year-old in Toronto pled guilty to second-degree murder. He was 12 at the time of the crime. CTV's Christina Tenalia tonight takes a look at the data on youth violence and explores what experts say could be part of the problem.
A 16-year-old boy faced charges in Toronto this weekend for injuring and killing several local animals.
It's a younger person, and I think if that's the case, that they need help.
Last week, Toronto police charged 2 teen boys with first-degree murder after a recent crime spree in the tow truck industry.
Youths are being targeted to commit the actual acts that other people want done out on the streets.
The week before that, a 13-year-old Toronto boy became the youngest person in the city's history to be convicted of murder. And still before the courts, the case of a group of 8 teenage girls charged in the 2022 swarming death of a man who lived on Toronto's streets. It's a disturbing trend, but one we won't have a full picture of for some time. Data lags behind at least a year. The most recent stats show that Canada's youth violent crime rate was up slightly in 2023. The year before, Stats Canada reports 90 people aged 18 and under were accused of homicide, an almost 50-year high.
And schools are reporting an uptick in bullying and violence.
This expert in youth mental health says where she's seeing a problem with violence is in the classroom.
So when that dam breaks, you see it overflow into the community.
The causes are complex, but the data points to kids being influenced by behaviors they witness.
A contagion effect.
Think of a behavior spreading from person to person, like a virus. Bad behaviors by adults, other kids, or online.
We can't go into homes and fix homes, but we can certainly manage kids when they're in schools.
The young people in the city are not all right.
Outside of the classroom, the head of Toronto City Council's youth advisory body says the best antidote for crime is a good job.
In order to get us out of the situation we're seeing, a key to that is youth employment.
At a recent summit, his group pushed the city to create 10,000 more youth summer jobs in 2025. The youth unemployment rate is a big concern for decision makers. It jumped to 13.5% in June, a level not seen in a decade, excluding the pandemic. Christina Tenalia, CTV News, Toronto.
Touching tributes are pouring in after the shocking loss of hockey star Johnny Gaudreau and his brother, Matthew.
He's always been an icon and someone who I've always looked up to when it came to hockey, so he will forever be Johnny Hockey in my eyes.
Every single game that arena sold out, he'd still go out and give 100%, even when the other guys on the team were just skating around.
He's been a really big role model, especially for younger kids.
Fans of the Columbus Blue Jackets and Calgary Flames honoring Johnny Hockey with memorials at his home rinks. Besides the flowers, signs, and jerseys, are calls to retire his number, 13. Johnny, 31, and Matthew, 29, were killed Thursday night while biking in New Jersey. They were hit by an SUV, the driver suspected of being impaired. The brothers were going to be groomsmen at their sister's wedding on Friday. Today, Johnny's wife, Meredith Gaudreau, shared messages online saying, "Despite losing you, I am still the luckiest girl in the world to have been yours. You are my forever, and I can't wait to be with you again. The absolute best dad in the world, the best partner to go through parenthood with. We are going to make you proud. We love you so much, Daddy." Johnny and his wife have a girl, almost 2, and a baby boy. Being a new parent is stressful. That's a given. But a new U.S. study points to a surprising find. The Surgeon General says parenting is now more stressful and time-consuming than ever and can lead to loneliness. CTV's Paul Hollingsworth has more on the effects of high-pressure parenting.
Patrick Martha, father to a 15-month-old baby, says being a parent is a 24/7 job.
The toughest thing is giving up some of that free time you had, but you know, it's replaced by all these wonderful things.
Martha loves being a dad. He also knows this is a busy chapter in life that requires constant attention. Other hobbies and activities have taken a backseat.
Without the time, it's nearly impossible.
Martha is not alone. In the U.S., a new report from the Surgeon General points to parenting pressures like managing busy schedules, bad behavior, and concerns about children's health and safety can cause a lack of sleep, serious money problems, and overall loneliness.
Parents are struggling with loneliness at higher levels than other adults, and this is particularly true for single parents.
When we say it takes a village to raise a child, that's also for the parents. It's not just for the child.
Psychologist Dana Lee Bagley says parents are best supported when they expand their social circle, show interest outside of the house, which allows them to take a break from parenting.
Because of social media, we end up thinking we're in connection with other people because we're watching other feeds, but that's not really social connection.
Lee Bagley says being a parent doesn't have to be an isolating task. There are strategies available to reduce stress and improve the quality of family life. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, Halifax.
The pressure is on at Canada Post after 6 straight years of losing money. Experts say it's clear something has to change to make the Crown Corporation stop bleeding. The CEO is now floating the idea of moving to delivery 7 days a week to better compete with other couriers. CTV's Laurence Bresson-Debroy reports.
Canada Post is at a tipping point, and it has been for some time, says economics professor Moshe Lender.
Those losses now run into the billions of dollars every single year.
The Postal Service lost $748 million last year and has been reporting losses since 2018. In the last 6 years, its deficits have totaled $3 billion. Its sizable network of mail couriers servicing the whole country is just one factor bringing down the Crown Corporation, says Lender.
They now face competition. In the 20th century, UPS and Purolator and Canpar, FedEx, they weren't really, first of all, they didn't necessarily exist in Canada. And even if they existed, they weren't necessarily trusted the way the Canada Post was.
He also points to the declining mail volumes as another sore spot, especially as Canadians increasingly pivot to online mail delivery, including these Montrealers.
It's easier, more direct.
Most of the stuff comes electronically now.
This week, Canada Post's board chair, André Hudon, said significant changes urgently needed to keep the organization afloat. Some experts believe it doesn't help that the organization is the only competitor in the industry that doesn't offer weekend delivery. The Crown Corporation CEO, Doug Ettinger, said this week that they are considering moving to a 7-day-a-week delivery model, a move Lender argues against.
The idea of expanding service, it's not like it's going to create more mail. This is exactly the wrong direction for any company that's trying to survive.
Canada Post declined our request for an interview, citing it won't comment on the topic as negotiations with the Canadian Union of Postal Workers continue. CTV reached out to the union but did not hear back in time for this broadcast. While Canada Post says it's looking at creating more flexibility in its delivery model, Lender says it might be time to consider shutting down.
While that would be a really awkward sort of discussion to have, and we would talk about the Postal Workers Union and job losses, but the fact is that when you're running up billions of dollars of losses and the government is running billions of dollars in deficit every year, it's not going to solve their budgetary problems.
But not everyone is ready to admit defeat yet.
The Canada Post has been around for a long time and they're still a good service.
I definitely think that there's work to be done in terms of staying competitive, but I wouldn't want to single this one service out.
Canada Post went from delivering 5.5 billion letters annually 2 decades ago to about 2 billion today. Laurence Bresson-Debroy, CTV News.
Canada has 2 new senators from Alberta. The Prime Minister appointed Daryl Fridhandler and Christopher Wells to fill 2 vacancies. Fridhandler is a corporate lawyer and former Liberal Party board member. Wells is an associate professor with MacEwan University and an LGBTQ2S+ advocate. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith is criticizing Justin Trudeau's choices, calling the senators left-wing partisans who will do whatever he and the Liberals order them to. Coming up, uprooting traditional farming.
An average family could save over $1,000 a year on their grocery budget.
A new kind of garden growing on Canadians. Plus, how an orangutan managed to escape at Toronto Zoo. When you picture a Canadian farm, you likely see vast fields that stretch over the horizon. But there is a new kind of farming that is taking root in Quebec. It doesn't require the same kind of space or investment, and crops aren't at the mercy of the weather. CTV's Lauren Fernandez tonight with a look at urban farming made easy.
It may look like something out of a science fiction movie, a lab-like environment where vegetables are grown. But according to Agriculture du Coin founder Daniel Feingloss, these urban hydroponic systems are the future of farming.
The uncertainty about levels of rainfall, the temperatures that are necessary in order to have the harvest that we've come to expect over the last few centuries, there's no way to guarantee that going forward. But the idea of moving stuff indoors is that in here, you can.
Urban farming isn't a new concept, but what their store does bring to the table are the tools to allow Montrealers to rely less on the supply chain. That includes all the equipment and information.
We've brought it all together and made it accessible. Everybody going down 80, walking down the street will say, oh my goodness, what is that? Wow, you can do that here? I can do that? That's amazing.
While also having a positive impact on the environment.
The idea of this more sustainable world is one in which, with sustainable agriculture, is one in which we reduce risk, save resources on transportation costs, and also the costs of irrigating and fertilizing stuff outside.
The entry-level equipment starts at around $100, and Feingloss believes you could end up saving in the end.
An average family could save over $1,000 a year on their grocery budget.
They gave me a taste of what they're cooking up next, expanding in 2025. These buildings on Park Avenue will house a full indoor farm that will even produce fish and eventually a restaurant.
And we are getting our own restaurant set up that will offer smoked fish as well as unique salads that we are very much looking forward to sharing with people.
Sharing their passion for urban farming by helping some make it a reality in their own backyard. Lauren Fernandez, CTV News.
We now know how a crafty orangutan escaped from its enclosure at the Toronto Zoo. Kembali swung off a platform, almost doing a cartwheel to get on a pole. Then he calmly climbed his way down that pole. The new habitat he broke out of cost $11 million. It may need to get redesigned. Kembali was eventually returned without incident. Straight ahead, bringing Braille back to school. A Saskatchewan boy sharing a special way to communicate. A Norwegian princess married an American who calls himself a shaman in a star-studded ceremony today. Yes. Princess Martha Louise and Durek Barrett tied the knot after 3 days of festivities in one of Norway's major tourism towns. The couple sold their wedding photo rights to British celebrity magazine Hello and film rights to Netflix. They have been widely criticized for having alternative beliefs. Both claim to communicate with angels or spirits. The princess will keep her royal title. Her new husband does not get one. Canadian swimmers made a big splash at the Paralympic Games in Paris. Tess Rotcliffe of Caledon, Ontario, swam to a silver medal in the women's 200-meter individual medley. Nicholas Bennett of Parksville, BC, followed with silver in the men's 200-meter freestyle, clinching the first Paralympic medal of his career. A big win has put a Saskatchewan boy on a mission to make the world more accessible. Isaiah Gauthier recently came in second at an international Braille competition. His success has moved him to advocate more for the blind. Here's CTV's Allison Bamford.
In a few days, Isaiah Gauthier will go back to school, sharing stories from the summer with his friends and showing off his new hardware.
But everybody got a medal.
But not everyone secured second place in the freshman category at the International Braille Challenge in Los Angeles. Gauthier had just 3 45-minute sessions to prove his skills in reading comprehension, spelling, and graphs, up against some of the best from Canada, the US, UK, and Australia.
It didn't feel like we were competing. It felt like we were on the same team.
And in many ways, they are on the same team, all looking to increase Braille literacy across the board. This summer, Gauthier penned a letter to his favorite mini-golf course, urging them to include Braille on their signs.
They're starting to put Braille, so that's pretty good.
Unlike others his age, the soon-to-be 5th grader is already reading Braille at a grade 8 level. Impressive, considering visually impaired students typically fall behind in their learning.
Most of your learning is visual. A baby will see their parents pouring a glass of milk.
If you can't see that, then you have to be explicitly taught.
But practice makes perfect, and Gaudreau's already working to get back to the international stage.
And he's always reading.
An inspiration to other students, according to his teacher, but Gaudreau says he couldn't do it on his own.
I knew there's a lot of people supporting me, and I think that's what really pushed me really far.
Allison Bamford, CTV News, Regina.
After the break, helping a little girl take her first steps on her own.
Hi, Emma. Do you want to walk with her?
How Calgarians came together to get her feet on the ground. We leave you tonight with a story about a Calgary community coming together to help a child gain some independence. Emma Shingleton is 5, and an illness left her unable to walk. But her parents were determined to give Emma some normalcy. CTV's Tyler Barrow has more.
Hi, Emma. Do you want to walk with her?
It's a moment that means a lot to Amanda Burrett that others may take for granted. Family walks. For her, it's special because she can now include her 5-year-old daughter, Emma Shingleton, thanks to her robotic walker.
Putting her in it for the first time, her smiling was amazing. Yeah, it was just a great feeling.
This was one of her first times in her Trexo walker. Emma has a rare neurodegenerative disease called KIF1A, associated neurological disorder. It impacts Emma's ability to speak, see, and express herself, lowers her muscle tone, delays her development, and ultimately impacts her movement.
It's very hard having a child like Emma. Her needs, she has extraordinary needs.
Which is why Amanda wanted to bring some normalcy to Emma's life. In the spring, Emma tested out a Trexo walker. Amanda wanted to do everything she could to get her one, but it's priced at more than $50,000.
Super intimidating. Again, it's a large amount of money, and it's uncomfortable asking people for money.
But Burrett quickly learned there was nothing to be uncomfortable about. 200 people donated to their GoFundMe. Others donated items for a raffle. Her community came together. The A&W in Auburn Bay raised approximately $5,000 for Emma, and the manufacturing company knocked off $8,000. In the end, the family raised $32,000 and took out a $10,000 loan to cover remaining costs.
It's very heartwarming to know that so many people want to see her succeed and happy.
Since some are witnessing it.
To see her in her Trexo, the smile that's on her face is just incredible.
A smile made step by step.
Seeing her doing things that other kids her age are doing, it's just, yeah, it means a lot.
Tyler Barrow, CTV News, Calgary.
That's a wrap on the day. I'm Morella Fernandez. For all of us here at CTV National News, thanks for sharing some time with us. Good night.